Welcome back to Scary Moo, your number one destination for all things chilling, terrifying, and absolutely haunted. If you're here, it means you've craved the stories that send shivers down your spine and make you question what lurks just out of sight. Tonight, we plunge deep into the world of haunted dollhouses. Yes, you heard that right. Not just dolls, but the miniature mansions they call home. And when the clock strikes 3 a.m., something inside those tiny rooms stirs, something that has been caught on camera. Evidence so disturbing, it will make you think twice before ever walking past an antique dollhouse again. Let's begin with a question. Have you ever stared into the miniature windows of a dollhouse and felt a presence staring back? Most see a child's plaything, a relic from more innocent times. But for those who know, dollhouses are more than toys. They are vessels, gateways, places where spirits, too small to be seen by the naked eye, find their refuge from the world of the living. And sometimes, in the witching hour, they decide to make themselves known. It all started in the cramped attic of an unremarkable Victorian home in rural Maine. The house itself had a history, a string of unexplained deaths, each owner more desperate to sell than the last. But it wasn't until a collector named Evelyn moved in that the true horror began. Evelyn had a passion for antique dollhouses, her collection spanning centuries and continents. She believed every house had a story, but she never expected those stories would come alive. On her first night, Evelyn heard the faintest sound of piano keys tinkling from somewhere above. The attic was locked, the dollhouses untouched. But the music persisted, growing louder each night, until one evening she caught a glimpse of movement, a shadow darting across the window of a miniature parlor. She set up cameras, determined to uncover the truth. What she recorded at 3 a.m. would haunt her forever. The footage begins innocuously enough. Dust motes floating in the moonlit air, a gentle creak as the house settles. But then, the dollhouse doors begin to open on their own. The miniature grandfather clock inside the largest house chimes, though it has no mechanism. And there, just for a moment, a tiny figure moves behind the lace curtains. Not a doll, but a shadow, twisting and writhing as if alive. Evelyn's collection quickly became infamous. Paranormal investigators from across the country flocked to her home, each eager to witness the unexplainable. Some laughed it off as clever trickery, but most left pale and shaken, refusing to speak of what they'd seen. One investigator, a hardened skeptic, dared to spend a night alone in the attic. By morning, his hair had turned stark white, and he could only mutter a single phrase: "They're watching." But what is it about dollhouses that attract spirits? In the world of the occult, it's believed that miniature objects serve as perfect vessels for souls too tormented to move on. The confined spaces, the tiny doors and windows, the intricate furniture, all invite restless energies. Each room becomes a stage for tragedies long forgotten. A child's laughter echoing in the nursery, the flicker of candlelight in a deserted dining hall, the faintest trace of perfume wafting from a dusty bedroom. Let's explore three of the most infamous haunted dollhouses, each with its own chilling legend. First, the Bloodwood Manor, crafted in the late 1800s by a grieving widow named Agnes Blackwell. Local legend insists that Agnes built the dollhouse as a memorial to her lost daughter, recreating every room down to the tiniest detail. But as the years passed, neighbors began to whisper about strange sights, ghostly faces pressed against the dollhouse windows, the sound of a child's sobs drifting from the attic. After Agnes's death, the dollhouse was auctioned off, changing hands countless times, each new owner reporting the same phenomena: flickering lights, moving dolls, and the overwhelming feeling of being watched. One collector swore the miniature nursery door locked itself at night, trapping a porcelain doll inside, its painted face twisted in silent terror. When the door was finally forced open, the doll had vanished, only to reappear days later, sitting upright at the foot of the collector's bed. Second is the infamous Holloway House, a grand Georgian replica found in the ruins of a burned-out asylum. Legend has it the asylum's headmistress, a cruel and merciless woman, commissioned the dollhouse as a model for a planned expansion. But after the asylum was consumed by fire, the dollhouse survived, unscathed among the ashes. Locals claim that, on certain nights, the tiny lights flicker on and off in the rooms, and the furniture rearranges itself. Some have heard the faint rattle of chains and distant screams echoing from within its walls. A group of urban explorers who dared to spend the night described waking to find all the tiny beds occupied by shadowy shapes, their faces obscured by darkness, watching in perfect silence. They fled, leaving the dollhouse behind, and none have dared approach it since. The third, and perhaps most terrifying, is the Carver House. Unlike the others, Carver House was never meant for play. Crafted by a reclusive woodworker whose own family perished under mysterious circumstances, the dollhouse was found hidden behind a false wall in his basement. Every surface is etched with cryptic symbols, and the rooms are filled not with delicate furniture, but with tiny effigies, grotesque and twisted, their faces frozen in masks of agony. Paranormal researchers who have studied the Carver House report hearing frantic scratching from inside the walls at night, and the overwhelming scent of decay. One investigator, determined to unlock its secrets, placed a small recorder inside the living room. The next morning, the tape played back an endless loop of desperate whispers. "Let us out. Let us out." But haunted dollhouses are not confined to the pages of folklore. All over the world, people have reported strange and terrifying encounters with these miniature abodes. One family in the English countryside discovered an old dollhouse in their attic, its paint peeling, its tiny chairs knocked over in disarray. The children, thrilled at first, quickly changed their tune when they began to see tiny footprints in the dust outside the house. Footprints that didn't match any of their dolls. At night, their mother heard faint tapping from inside the walls, and the unmistakable sound of laughter, soft, high-pitched, and utterly inhuman. When she tried to throw the dollhouse away, the front door slammed shut on her fingers, drawing blood. The family moved out soon after, leaving the dollhouse behind. It sits there still, waiting for its next playmate. What is it about 3 a.m. that amplifies the terror? In the world of the paranormal, 3 a.m. has long been known as the witching hour, the time when the veil between the living and the dead is at its thinnest. Spirits that slumber during daylight hours grow restless, seeking out new ways to communicate, to make their presence known. For the haunted dollhouse, 3 a.m. is the moment when its ghostly inhabitants awaken, replaying their tragedies over and over, desperate for release. Skeptics will say it's all imagination. The creaking of old wood, the settling of dust, the tricks of shadow and light. But the evidence tells a different story. In case after case, cameras left to record these dollhouses at night have captured inexplicable phenomena. Doors opening and closing on their own, tiny furniture sliding across floors, the faintest outline of a figure peering through a window. Some have even captured voices, whispers barely audible, pleading for help, warning intruders to stay away. One particularly chilling case comes from a small town in the Midwest, where a retired schoolteacher named Margaret inherited her grandmother's dollhouse. She placed it in her living room, a quaint reminder of her childhood. But soon, she began to notice changes. The dollhouse clock would strike 3 every night, though it had no batteries. The tiny curtains would be drawn when she awoke, though she always left them open. One night, Margaret was jolted awake by the sound of a child's laughter. She crept downstairs, only to see the miniature dining room table set for 2, candles flickering with an eerie blue flame. She hurried back to bed, heart pounding, determined to get rid of the dollhouse in the morning. But at 3 a.m., she awoke to find the dollhouse at the foot of her bed, the tiny front door wide open, inviting her inside. There are those who claim that haunted dollhouses are not only vessels for spirits, but also traps, prisons for souls who, in life, were denied peace. In Victorian times, it was believed that evil could be contained in small spaces, locked away from the world. Some families would commission dollhouses specifically to house the spirits of lost children, or to bind the ghosts of those who died violently. Over time, these houses absorbed the pain and suffering of their occupants, becoming cursed objects, dangerous to any who dared to disturb them. But what happens when you open the doors of a haunted dollhouse? Some say you invite the spirits into your own home, giving them permission to cross the threshold. Others believe that simply gazing into the windows is enough to attract their attention, to awaken something that should remain undisturbed. There are countless stories of those who, after encountering a haunted dollhouse, become plagued by nightmares, unexplained illness, or even worse, vanish without a trace. A paranormal historian once described haunted dollhouses as the perfect storm of innocence and dread. They are remnants of childhood, but also reminders of mortality, decay, and loss. Each tiny room holds echoes of the past, a dripping faucet, the flutter of moth-eaten curtains, the scent of rotting wood. And at night, when the world grows quiet and the shadows deepen, these echoes become something more. They become voices, pleading to be heard. One of the most disturbing reports comes from a group of university students who purchased a dollhouse at an estate sale. They laughed off the stories, daring each other to spend the night in the same room. Around 3 a.m., they heard scratching from inside the dollhouse, followed by a low moan that seemed to vibrate through the floorboards. When they looked inside, they found the dolls had all moved. Gathered around the tiny fireplace, their painted faces turned toward the students, their glass eyes glinting in the darkness. The next morning, one student was missing. His friends searched everywhere, but found only a single clue: a miniature shoe, sitting on the dollhouse's porch. Not all haunted dollhouses are old. Some are newly built, but become haunted when placed in homes with tragic histories. One family, grieving the loss of their young daughter, commissioned a dollhouse in her memory. But soon, they began to see their daughter's favorite doll moving from room to room, even when the house was locked. At night, the family heard her voice coming from the dollhouse, singing the lullabies she loved in life. They tried to destroy the dollhouse, but it would always reappear, perfectly intact, waiting for them in the center of the living room. So, what can you do if you find yourself face to face with a haunted dollhouse? Some experts recommend sealing the house in a box lined with salt and iron filings, then burying it far from your home. Others say the only way to break the curse is to perform a ritual of release, lighting a candle in each room and reciting a prayer for the dead. But beware. Many who have tried to rid themselves of haunted dollhouses have only succeeded in making the spirits angrier, more desperate for attention. The safest course of action may be to leave the house untouched, to resist the urge to peek inside, no matter how strong the pull. There are those who collect haunted dollhouses, believing they can harness the spirits within for power or protection. But these collectors often pay a terrible price. Many report being plagued by relentless nightmares, unexplained injuries, or sudden, violent mood swings. Some have disappeared entirely, leaving behind only their collections, gathering dust in abandoned homes. The dollhouse is waiting for their next owner. The allure of the haunted dollhouse lies in its contradictions. It is both a symbol of innocence and a vessel for evil, a place of comfort and a prison of despair. Each house tells a story, of love, loss, madness, and revenge. And when the clock strikes 3 a.m., those stories come alive, played out in miniature for any who dare to watch. So, the next time you see an antique dollhouse at a flea market, a yard sale, or hidden away in your grandmother's attic, ask yourself, what memories does it hold? What tragedies are locked behind its tiny doors? And are you brave enough to find out what happens when the spirits inside decide to come out and play? If you enjoyed this journey into the world of haunted dollhouses, be sure to subscribe to Scary Moo for more terrifying tales and supernatural mysteries. Tell us in the comments, have you ever encountered a haunted dollhouse, or do you have your own chilling story to share? Until next time, remember, when midnight fades to 3, and the world is asleep, some houses, no matter how small, are never truly empty. Keep your doors locked, your eyes open, and your lights burning bright. And as always, stay scary.